Okay, I think you might be able to hear me now. Can you hear me now? Okay, let me make sure I can save this here. Okay, I think we got it. Okay, my husband says that you can hear me from the other room. So sorry. Thank you, Jennifer, but you look pretty. Well, thank you. Thank you. Glad I can be in fairly decent looking mute. Okay, so let me say what I was saying. So if you're wondering why I was holding up a leaf, this is a collard green. And I'm actually behind. I have a lot of canning that I've been wanting to do. I've got the canning bug like you wouldn't believe. So I'm processing collard greens so I can can them tomorrow, as well as I've got some venison I want to can as well, but the greens look better on camera than cutting up some meat. So you're going to see me working on that. So this is the June live video, and it's going to be different because it's just one big FAQ, frequently asked questions. I posted this to Instagram several times where, ask me questions, but it's not just bread related this time. I opened it up to any and all questions that y'all wanted to ask me, and I got many, many great questions. So you're not only going to have some grain bread questions answered, but you're also going to get to know me a little bit better as well, because some of y'all asked, more personal questions than the grain questions. Okay, so how this is going to work is I should be live on Instagram. I also have, it's saying I'm not on Instagram. Ugh, I should be. I don't know why not. So I will have to figure that out later. It gave me the option. I'm on a third-party streaming right now. So yeah. Sorry for those of you on Instagram, but this is at least live on YouTube. So how this works is I actually have a bunch of questions that I was asked. And then for any questions that y'all want to ask, you can put it in the chat box. Now, do know if you really want me to answer your questions, because if there's a lot, I'm not necessarily going to see all of them, but you can leave a super chat. And that gives me like a huge, big notification that you have a question that you want to answer, or if you just want to say, hey, howdy do, tip, whatever. So that is an option as well, especially if you really have one that you want me to answer. Okay, so I think we're good. Also, my husband will be in the chat putting down any links that if I mention something, he's my link guy. And so he'll be answering that in the chat, so I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so and then I got my phone here where I have questions pulled up, so you'll see my eyeballs all over the place. Okay, so let's just start with the questions. These are kind of in no particular order. Okay, but the first one that is here is tell us about your family. I also had several questions asking how many children I have, things like that. So if you have been around for more than 5 seconds, you probably have noticed that I've never stated how many children I have. You do not see them anywhere on social media, none of my platforms. And I don't even tell you guys how many kids we have. We are a large family. You're just going to have to trust me on that one. But we chose before we ever had children that for their privacy, we keep them off social media always and forevermore. So family doesn't post to social media, nothing like that. So unfortunately, guys, that's just one thing that y'all are not going to see really close up on it. Is we just choose to protect our kids and just give them that privacy, not have an online presence before, they're practically born. So that's that. But my husband, I can tell you about. I also had questions. Another question I got is how we met. So some of y'all probably noticed on Instagram that I'm like not working on collards at all. Instagram a few weeks ago that we celebrated our wedding anniversary. That was our 13th wedding anniversary. So some fun facts that I've said is, we got married like on Memorial Day. Whenever we got married, it doesn't always fall Memorial Day now, but it was on a Monday and it was wonderful. It was a wonderful decision to get married on a Monday. Now it was a holiday, so people had the day off, but it was a brilliant decision. But we actually met in college. We were both in a scholarship choral group. Yes, we are music people. My husband has a really great voice. And how I actually noticed him, even though he sat behind me in our choral group, I really don't have many memories of him, except in one of our honor recitals, he sang the prayer with another girl. And that's when I noticed him. But we weren't really friends or anything until a couple years later. And we kind of reconnected. I was at Florida State University. He was at another university, and we actually reconnected on MySpace. Holler if you remember the MySpace days. I am dating myself. So yeah, we reconnected. We became friends. I actually became a Christian because of him, which I did get several questions about my testimony, what I was like, how my life was before I became a Christian. So it's because of him that I'm a Christian. And then he basically just couldn't get rid of me. And we were best friends. He was teaching me. And then I finally convinced him that I was the one for him. And he wasn't going to get rid of me so easily. And here we are. All right. So it says, I'm getting audio has been out of sync all day. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's me or y'all's internet. I have no way of fixing that. So that's how it was with my husband and I. And here we are. So we did not have your typical Disney love story. There's far more to our story that is way more powerful. But I'm just really grateful that I have them. And the Lord knew what I needed. So that leads to the questions about my testimony. I actually grew up in church because I'm in the South, and that's what you do. And yes, grown up Baptist, because that's also what you do in the South. And my dad actually was a minister. He was a minister of music. So yes, I come from a very musical background. And I grew up in church. I was one of the minister kids. I knew all the questions. I made a profession of faith when I was about, I think, 6 or 7 years old. Was baptized on my birthday when I was 10 by my dad. And, I was pretty good. Just your typical kind of church, Southern Baptist church kid. And then I hit my high school years, and things kind of went downhill. Made some really stupid decisions. Teenage issues. And it wasn't until, and then I went off to college, made some more stupid decisions, was not living a good life. And then my husband and I became friends, and we started talking, and he was very, he's always been very studious with his Bible. And we were texting one night about, crazy enough, gender roles, which I hate using the word gender, but we're going to go with that. And what the Bible says, like what's the perfect, how God created men and women and what are the results. And I never identified myself as a feminist, but I kind of was, and I didn't realize it. And let's just say it got very heated. I was very upset. I'm embarrassed to say the stupid things that I was saying, but, and this was text. And when I say text, y'all, I mean like the T9, before we had a full keyboard. These are like on flip phones. So mad kudos the fact that he didn't just give up on me. And then he showed me verse after verse after verse. And I broke that night. And basically it's not your typical, I realized I was a sinner and, things like that. But it was years. It took me kind of a few years to kind of put it into words. But I had an authority problem, and I'd never truly submitted my life to the Lord. I'd never truly repented of my sins, even though, growing up, I was seen as pretty good. But by then I was fully aware of the sin in my life. And for months, I'd actually been begging God to get me out of it, because I was unable to get myself out of this life that I'd created. And he sent my husband along, and lo and behold, my besetting sin was definitely God's authority in my life. And yeah, then I've been the same since. My life was radically changed. I walked away from the lifestyle I was living, and he began discipling me and teaching me all the things. And so that was March 31st, 2007, back when I was in college. And yeah, that's kind of my testimony. It took me a couple years to realize that was actually the moment that I was truly born again and saved. I thought it was, for a while, I just said, I just came back to the Lord. But no, I did not have the fruit in my life to show that I was truly born again, truly a new creature before. But at that moment, I definitely was showing that fruit. My life was changed. I now had the power over sin that I did not have before. So yeah, like everything else in my life, it's kind of an unconventional salvation story. But yeah, I'm just really grateful, and the Lord has been guiding and teaching me and refining me since. And it's been a rough journey. Because I still have, heart issues. If you haven't figured out, I'm a little bit of a fireball. So, my husband is definitely an alpha, and he will be king of his household. And I'm grateful for that, because trust me, I do not need to be in charge of the household. I will mess it up completely. So that's my salvation story. I was actually baptized a couple years later, a few months before we were married, and it was an old-fashioned river baptism, which you would think would be fine here in Florida, except that it was March and it was in North Florida and it was freezing. So I couldn't really thoroughly enjoy the moments, because it was like, okay, baptized and get me out of here because I'm cold. But that was really cool that I was able to have that. So that's my testimony. And here we are, and we're married, and we're doing all the things, and he hasn't killed me yet, so win. But okay, so that's a little bit more of my background. So now, new questions. Yes, Jennifer, amen. He's not finished with us yet. We are definitely a work in progress. Yes, and I am definitely still very much a work in progress. I have a long way to go. Okay. So, Rachel, I can relate with your story. It's neat to relate. Yes, amen, amen. Again, it's kind of unusual, but that's how the Lord worked in my life. But okay, so let's go. Oh, I did have a question about how long I have done CC, which is Classical Conversations. That is the homeschool co-op that we are a part of, and I love it. I have been tutoring. I tutored foundations for 2 years, and I tutored essentials last year. And I'll be tutoring essentials again this year, and I'm really excited about it. So if you're not familiar with Classical Conversations, it is a homeschool co-op based on a classical model of education, which I love. And so you can definitely check them out. I recommend it. If you're a homeschooler, classicalconversations.com is where you can go for all the information there. Okay. Next up, so this is going to be, it's going to be weird because it's going to be a mixture of bread questions and personal questions. So bear with me. Next up, have you ever made anything from Emmer wheat berries? So I have them, and I do not know if I have made anything because I'm a collector of grains, like a weirdo. I want to say I have tried them in muffins, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to say technically no. I mean, I know I have because the jar is depleted a bit. I can't remember. Emmer, if you don't know, is an ancient grain, like einkorn, can be a little tricky to deal with. So no, I have not tried Emmer yet. Okay, so next question, when you sell your 2-pound loaf of freshly milled bread, how much do you charge? Okay, so I get asked this a lot whenever I sell my bread. How much do I charge? And basically, long ago, I kind of calculated it out and then doubled my price. And so you're just going to have to kind of calculate out your ingredients, just kind of figure that out. And then I personally do like to double that as my profit margin, but make sure that you're also taking care of, I took in consideration the electricity that my oven is, my time, other materials like bread bags, twisty ties, stickers if you're using those. So right now, selling them, I would sell them for $12 a loaf. I do use organic wheat, generally organic ingredients, so that contributes to the price. If you're not using organic ingredients, then of course that can lower the price. But personally, I would never do like less than $10 a loaf. That's just me personally speaking, because this is skill and it takes time, and don't apologize because it's really good. Other things I would consider selling are things like cookies and muffins, because those are a bit easier to package. And a muffin you can sell for $1, cookie, 3 for $1. I think they're a bit cheaper to do it, but they're still getting the freshly milled wheat with that. All right, so I think I've got a question up here. This is from, if I can get my mouse to work. Okay, my dough is always wet, sticky. I can add more flour and knead it more, but it doesn't really stiffen up. I don't usually get the window pane. They have the Ankh mixer, and then try and knead by hand. Okay, all right, let's talk about this window pane thing here, because that's something I've been seeing a lot of, is people saying, I don't have the window pane. If you're not sure what the window pane is, that's when you have the dough and you can stretch it a little bit and you can kind of see through it, kind of like a window, not like completely like a window, like glass, but you can kind of see a little bit. And I have never worried about that as with my bread, because I found that I technically don't get that typical window pane look, and my bread turns out fine. So to me, that's kind of all that matters. Now, I will say, as far as stickiness, if you watched my most recent simple loaf bread recipe, I did that back in January. It's also the January recipe for our Make Bread 365 challenge. If you check that one out, I did update it, and I think I did address the stickiness more, because I do like my bread dough to be a little sticky. Now, not so much where it's falling apart and like on my hands and stuff, but I do like it where it's a bit tacky, basically, I think is the word, tacky dough, because I find if I add too much flour where it's no longer sticking at all whatsoever, period, it's just too dense. So this is going to be something, and remember, this all varies on the wheat that you're using, the humidity that you have, if you're mixing it by hand. You may not have kneaded it enough in the mixer. So this kind of just, again, bread baking, especially with freshly milled grains, is an art as well as a bit of a science. So this is just going to have to be something to keep practicing with. And just what I would do is, to keep it from getting too dense, is I will lightly flour my hands, or even just lightly wet my hands with water to keep it from sticking. And also using one of those scrapers as well to scrape it up. That really helps. Okay, how much does your $12 loaf weigh? They're close to 2 pounds. They're usually around anywhere from about 1.5 pounds to just under 2 pounds. And then Barbara, how do you know how much wheat berries to use to get 2 cups? General rule of thumb, 1 cup of wheat berries mills into about 1.5 cups of flour. So if you notice in my recipes, I am starting to say how much wheat berries to mill to get the flour that you need. Hopefully that makes sense. So be on the look at that. And just know that in my recipes, if I say flour, that means the flour that comes after being milled. If I say the grains, that's like the wheat berries that I'm talking about before milling. All right, next up, do you have your own cookbook? If not, recommendations. I do not have my own cookbook. It is one of my long-term goals in the making. But yes, I do have some that I recommend. Sue Becker's home milled flour guide. I can never remember that title, but you can find it on Amazon. I do have it, I believe, on my website. And I have not made every single recipe from there, But that actually is a good cookbook. Not only at the beginning does she talk about the benefits of freshly milled wheat. So for those who want to learn more about that, it's a great book for that because it's all there at the beginning. And yeah, it is a good cookbook. I would say it's better than her standard red one that she had for years and what I started with. My favorite recipes in there, I have tweaked them a bit, but like her brownie recipe is good. I have modified that myself. What else is good? Oh, I can't remember. But yeah, that's actually right there in my little cookbook holder behind my paper towels. That's her cookbook right there. So again, I do have that on my website. You can find it on Amazon. That one and other ones I'm working through are some of Peter Reinhardt's books. Still kind of making my way through them. But those are the ones dealing with bread with freshly milled wheat. Now I'm super excited because Michael Gropp, who I interviewed a few weeks ago, that video is up. She's coming out with one. And I'm really excited because I love her recipes. I love her. She only uses freshly milled wheat. So when that drops, I will definitely be letting you know as well. And I can't wait to see it. Forgive me, I'm not a psycho waving around a knife. Just cut my collars. Okay, do you know, for those of you who are part of my membership group, my collard green recipe is actually going to be the recipe coming out this week. So be on the lookout in your inbox because I finally nailed collard greens. And these are stupid good. And I canned them as well. So I'll be letting you know how I can them. Okay, so next up, okay. Oops. Oh yeah, this was a great one. Oh, hold on. My phone. Hold on. Okay. How do you deal with baking all the things when it's so hot out and the AC can't keep up? All right. So for those who do not know, I am in Florida. Now I am not in South Florida. I am more North Central Florida. But it gets hot as blue blazes here in the summertime. And basically how we handle it is we suffer. Not gonna lie. It is difficult. We do lower our AC a bit more now. But yeah, it'll get hot. I have a ceiling fan in my kitchen. I've had that for years and I will never not have a ceiling fan in my kitchen because that's wonderful. And I also, where I live now, thankfully, I have much taller ceilings, which really helps because that heat goes up. But other things are, I do like crock pots. Of course, the bread machine does not put out the heat like an oven does. But yeah, so how I handle it is it's just, I suck it up. I suck it up and I get it done. That's what I do because that's what we do in Florida. We basically hibernate for the summer unless we're out in water somewhere. And then by the time it's cooled down enough where we're not going to die stepping outside is when all the stores around here decide that they're going to just go ahead and bring out the fall and long sleeve sweaters and we're just getting started with our heat. So yeah. I'm in Florida and our AC just quit in a heat wave. Oh, I am praying for you. I have been there. I have had AC go out in August for a week. I understand. My heart is with you. Okay, next up, let's see. Have you ever made homemade tortilla chips or desire to? Okay, that's funny because I literally just did that the other day. I still need to work on them because they were kind of more like they were crunchy, but crunchy chewy, if that makes sense. So not just crunch. I did notice that it did work better when the tortillas were a day old, at least a day old. So I think the key is probably using more stale tortillas and getting the oil hot enough. But I am still working on tortilla chips. Okay, any tips? Let's see. Okay, this is a good one. Any tips for finding a routine to keep up feeding whole grain breads to a large family, 3 teenagers? God bless you. Especially if they're boys, they're probably nonstop. Okay, so here's my deal. I am a large family and having all the food is just part of my life. So I accept that. That's the first thing. It's just accepting the fact that you have eaters in the family. So what I recommend is the routine is I usually bake 3 loaves of bread every other day. I do it in, my Bosch or my artiste. And so I'm not necessarily having to do it every single day, but I've also found that I also like to have things like cookies, muffins for those snack times. That way it's just kind of something to that you can grab if you're hungry and everything. Now I do guard them with my life, because if I did not, my kids would eat them all in one fell swoop and there would be none. So, we do not have free for all with the food around here. But yeah, you just have to kind of get used to it. Don't let your bread run out. Usually whenever I see myself down to 1 loaf, it is time to make some more. Thankfully, my recipe does not take that long. Sometimes it's being made while I'm making supper, and then, I'm getting up during the meal to put the bread in the oven, or getting up in the meal to take it out of the oven. And so you just kind of have to learn to work it in. And especially if you have the heavy duty mixers, it's not like you're standing over it, you're kneading, I can knead it and walk away, and do other things. So that definitely helps. All right, so let me look at some of these questions here. Let's see. Do you sift your freshly milled flour? No. The one exception is I do sift for my biscuits, but I have people freak out on me, saying how I'm sifting the flour. Do you know I am not making white flour? There's still bran in there. I maybe remove 10%. If even that. It's more of lightening up the flour, but I have found you got to do it for the biscuits, because they just will not be lighter. They're really, really dense and flat if I don't sift. So that's my one exception. I think I said on my chocolate chip cookie recipe video that I sifted. I no longer do that. It's not needed, but it is still needed for my flour, for my biscuits. But again, I'm not making white flour. Trust me, that I can't do that here. Okay. So next up. Okay, I think someone else asked this question. So my fresh milled bread always implodes and also has a big hole in the middle. Advice. Okay, so I assume implode meaning it is sunken in the middle. That means you have most likely you have over risen the dough. So generally speaking, you want the dough to rise just about an inch above the pan. And this is going to take some practice, so you can build up your instincts, so you can look at it and know if it's risen too much or not. Because remember, it's going to rise a bit more in the oven. So you're not wanting it to rise all the way up to where you want your bread to be, because then it's going to fall in the oven because you rose it too much. This could also be a shaping issue. Most likely if your bread has a hole in the middle, that is a shaping issue, which I cover in my simple yeast bread loaf videos of the importance of how I am shaping it. So that is important. So whenever you're doing that roll, remember, you're rolling it, pulling it back slightly, rolling it, pulling it back slightly. It all matters. It all matters. So go watch it again. All right. Me. What do your meals / snacks look like to cut out store-bought flour? Okay, let me think. So for breakfast, our breakfasts usually are toast. Depends if we're wanting a lighter breakfast. We have toast, and that's with butter or some, homemade jams and jellies. Some people like it with honey. Kind of just depends, but toast is a good one. We also like oatmeal. I do roll my own oats now. So oatmeal is another one with peanut butter toast. My husband likes his oatmeal with peanut butter toast. And then cream of wheat is also one for breakfast. So, and then also we have, if we do eggs, grits, I am milling the corn, making my own grits. And of course we always have toast, or there's biscuits, like biscuits and gravy, or like this past Sunday where my husband requested biscuits and gravy, grits, eggs, and fruit, all the things. So that was I was full for all day. And then lunches, sandwiches are very popular around here, or leftovers. If it's leftovers from supper the night before, there's always bread involved. At the very least, bread is served as the bread. And then supper, it's whatever I'm cooking plus bread. And again, when I say bread, most of the time it is my simple yeast bread loaf that has been sliced, and then cut again for those 2 pieces. So it doesn't have to be fancy. And then serve it with some butter, bada bing, bada boom. Now, do you know it is always popular for me to make rolls, which is the same recipe. But the beauty of rolls is that you can serve them hot. Fresh, you can pull them right out of the oven and serve them, and they are the best that way. So that's generally what I do. But yeah, there's bread at every single meal, some sort of grain at every single meal. Okay, let me look at questions on here. Anyway, let's see. Oh, Colin, Cole, Felicia, thank you for bringing whole grains into my life. We made our first fleshy ground recipes this weekend and love it. Yay! Okay. Okay, what wheat would you use for zucchini bread? We used soft white and it was too dense, but we followed a recipe for all-purpose flour. Okay, generally speaking, I have not made a zucchini bread in a very, very, very long time. If it requires yeast, I would probably do hard white or hard red, like 2 parts hard red to 1 part soft white, if it involves yeast. Which it sounds like if it's too dense, it might need to rise a little bit. So that would be that. Now, if you're making a banana bread type thing, where again, banana bread though is more of a batter type bread, you can use soft white wheat for that, but that's what I do. All right, another one. You live in Florida, right? How do you like it? It's my state, y'all. It's my state. It's where my family is. This is my home. Yes, I do think we're the best state in the union, and we totally proved it in 2020. Prove me wrong. So it is hot. Like it's hot, it's muggy. Like the summers are brutal. I'm actually not wanting to ever move away from Florida because I don't know if I could come back. So some of my family, I know family and friends who have moved away from Florida. They could be born and raised in Florida. They move away and they come back and they wonder how in the world they survive with the heat and the humidity. We all wonder that. I don't know. I can't tell you, but I love Florida. So many jokes about Florida and they're accurate because we're crazy. And I think it is because of the heat. It drives us mad. So yeah, I do love it, but no one stop moving here. Okay. It's now like Florida has been discovered and it makes me sad because we want to be left alone. So if you move here, be careful of your politics. Okay. That's all I'm saying about that. All right. When are you writing a book? Love y'all. Another long-term plan. I actually was just talking about this with my husband the other day. Yeah, that's gonna be a while. It's gonna be a while, but it's on the brain. It's on the brain. All right. So another question: do you ever freeze bread dough for future baking? No, I just don't, y'all. I know I get asked about freezing all the time, and I just don't. I don't. You can. I think people have done the rolls where you'll shape it into rolls, let it rise, and then freeze it. I'm not sure, but no, I don't. I'm weird. I don't know. I like it fresh. I think it's always going to be better fresh. Now what I do is I will freeze leftover flour if I have it and use that for whenever I just need a little bit of flour in something like gravies. Puddings, you need 1 or 2 tablespoons or something. I'm not going to go to my mill for that. I just pull it out of the freezer. So I do freeze my flour. I also do like to keep, I do process my grits earlier, keep those either in the fridge or the freezer because it does take time to process grits. So I definitely recommend doing that the night before. So yeah. Okay. So which would much rather be in Florida than Canada. God bless you, Canadians. Yeah, I agree. I don't want to go to Canada. No offense. I mean, I wish I had winter, but it is better here. Okay. So another one, I cannot get a second rise what is going on? Well, I don't do a second rise. I have found that, especially using freshly milled wheat, it all depends on the recipe. It all depends on the recipe. It depends on the wheat. It depends on the cosmos. I have found that certain breads just don't do well with a second rise with freshly milled wheat. I found, so for my own simple yeast bread recipe, whenever I found out that I only needed one rise, well, guess what, y'all? Mama's going to do one rise because it works. That's why. But yeah, I think sometimes, again, it depends on the bread. I especially found with no knead breads, I don't think it can handle multiple rises. Just, again, I'm still working on that, but it's just theory right now. Okay, next up, do I have any questions? All right. Do you have any freshly milled recipes for high altitude? Oh yeah, living in Florida, I am far from a high altitude. I'm literally like 90 feet above seawater. Yeah, I think I'm 90 feet above water. But we always do buy high and dry. We are smart enough to do that. So I'm not in a flood zone or anything. But yeah, I'm not even close to high altitude cooking. Honestly, with that, if you are used to high altitude cooking, sound off in the comments or the chat with any device that you have. I would just Google it to see what needs to be adjusted for high altitude cooking. I want to say it's something with like baking powder or baking soda, but I am not sure. So I would just Google it. There may even be a free converter. I don't know, but there you go. Okay. Okay, so here's one interesting. My white wheat berries make whatever I'm baking kind of yellow. Is that normal or quality of the berries? I would not say yellow, but I mean, you're not going to have your typical white bread. You're not going to have that. Depending on the wheat, like I've noticed hard red wheat, it does have more of that brownish, that darker, typical whole wheaty type look compared to, hard white is a bit whiter, not pure white, like with all-purpose flour. So I would say this is possibly normal. It's just the beauty of using freshly milled grains because we actually get a variety. It's not just all pasty white. Okay, so Mariposa, what have been your struggles so far with sourdough? Where do I begin? Laziness. Full blown. I forget to like pull out my starter and feed it. And, it's just like, oh, the planning, like y'all, I'm bad. I'm bad at it. I'm bad. I'm impatient. It's just, yeah, I got to sit there and yeah. But also, I do not think I'm going to be able to successfully do a no knead sourdough. From my research, and y'all have been helping me out, sending me recipes that y'all do. I need to get back to it, but I believe kneading is going to be the key when using freshly milled wheat, just from my experiences, because whenever I was doing no knead, it was flat, just dense. My chickens loved it. No one else did. I mean, it was like the flavor was fine, but no one's going to be eating some dense rock that I cranked out of the oven. Okay. Oh, okay. So Sam has answered for high altitude cooking in New Mexico. They reduced the instant dry yeast by 25%. Okay. And then also KP said Red Rose Homestead, she covers high altitude cooking and baking. So there you go. Thank you. Thank you so much, KP and Sam, for that information. Because again, I'm not even close to high altitude. All right, here, another one. Can you cover malt sweeteners? Funny, I got this question literally the day after I had added barley malt syrup to my Pleasant Hill grain order that's coming up, because I know barley malt syrup is typically used in bagels. I've noticed that for bagels, and I've never used it before. So that's why I'm getting it. So whenever I figure it out, I will share, but I do not know right now. Okay, let me see. Questions. These are more about my family, my testimony. Okay, this is from Unsifted, which I love them. How did you start your channel / page, and were you nervous? So that's a great question. So I started the YouTube channel January of 2021. Oh my word, y'all. Really? It's been like 2.5 years. It's been 2.5 years. Yeah, so there you go. I started in January 2021, and the reason I started is because we all know what happened in 2020. Flour was not found, and suddenly everyone is discovering that you can mill your own wheat and you can make your own flour when all the flour is gone from the shelf. So I started seeing so many people talk about this, and then they knew that I was doing it, and I was asking questions. I mean, I was answering questions. I was being asked all these questions, and by that time, I'd been doing it for like 10, 11 years. So I was way ahead of the ball game. And not to mention, I had all the things, because as people's interest went through the roof, well, grain mills sold out, mixers sold out, production lines just flipped out getting grains. I mean, like, wow, I've never been more thankful to have been ahead of the ball game more than them. And it wasn't just on this either. So we, it was kind of my husband knew that I had already always talked about starting a YouTube channel, but I didn't know what to do, especially because who I am, I'm a stay-at-home homeschooling mom, but I'm not ever going to show my kids on social media. So there goes like a homemaking, homesteading, who I am basically channel. And I never knew what to do. And then he suggested, hey, you should do one about, milling your wheat and everything. And I literally told him, I said, well, yeah, but I mean, how many videos could I really do? He's now laughing hysterically because clearly I have a million that I can do. And I'm bursting at the seams with ideas, and more things are coming down the pipeline that I'm really excited to be introducing to y'all very soon. So exciting things are coming. I can't talk about it yet, but so be on the lookout. So be sure you are signed up for my email list. So I think we might put that in a link here to sign up for my email list. And that way you get notified pretty firsthand of anything coming down, and any new things. If you're part of my membership group, you always get to know things before everyone else. So exciting things coming. But was I nervous? No, I wasn't, because I basically grew up on stage. I grew up performing. I was singing solos in church, like when I was 4. So if you can't tell, I'm quite extroverted, and I'm always like, here I am. And if there's something to lead, I want to lead it. And so no, I was never nervous. It was just turning on the camera. Now I still, even then it was funny, because looking back on those first videos, please don't. I still had to learn to be on video, because I wasn't nervous, but I was coming across as kind of not who I am. And I had to learn to just talk to you guys like you're here in my kitchen talking to me. So just know that, I had to learn. I had to learn that, like, I had to tell myself to chill out and relax, because apparently I was naturally taking on this weird persona. My husband would watch videos and like, this is not you. So hopefully I have gotten better. Okay, so that's a good question. But yeah, I started in January 2021 because of 2020. Probably the only good thing that came out of that. That, and a lot of people got woken up to a lot of things. And the homesteading movement is now skyrocketing, which is awesome. So proof that Romans 8:28 still happens. God still gets the glory from any situation. And how many times there's a silver lining, even when something is bad. Okay, let me see here. I think, what's your favorite fresh milled dessert? As of this video, my chocolate chip cookies. Oh, and the brownies, which I need to make a video of my brownies, because I tweaked Sue Becker's recipe. But I would say I've been on a chocolate chip cookie thing lately. That's just like, kind of one of my favorites. I think because you can eat the dough. no judging here. Okay, so are you liking the bread machine? I am liking the bread machine. I do not use it often, mainly because we need more than one loaf of bread whenever I'm baking it. But I do love it for those times that it's now like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh, I need bread for the next morning. I just put it in the bread machine, turn on the button, and I have bread the next morning. Do know, by the way, I have found that hard red wheat works the best and most consistently in my bread machine. I have used hard white, but it's kind of more inconsistent results. But my hard red works every single time. So little bonus note there. But yeah, I do, as far as the bread machine, it's a great bread machine. I would definitely get a bread machine if you are not home a lot and able to make bread, or if you just really like that convenience. And especially if I was only needing one loaf at a time, I would probably just throw everything in the bread machine. And again, especially if you have a hot house, it does not emit the same heat as the oven. I think it actually emits even less heat than a crock pot. I think it seems that way, but I could be mistaken. So yeah, I definitely still love it. Okay, let me see here. Okay, we have more questions. Do you ever add lecithin or gluten to your regular honey wheat loaf? From my experience with other recipes, it makes it a bit lighter in texture. Didn't know if you ever tried it or have suggestions for the amount to add. If so, no, I do not typically add gluten or lecithin to my bread for two reasons. One, I find I don't need it. And if I don't need something, I'm not going to go out of my way to make it more complicated for myself. So no. Now there was, what was I making the other day? Oh, what was I making? Okay, there was something I made the other day, and I'd mentioned to my husband possibly adding gluten to it to give it a bit extra oomph. Oh, what was that? If my husband remembers, maybe he will put it in the chat. But generally, no, I do have it on hand. I do have the lecithin on hand, but no, I generally do not use it. Okay, I just got here. What are you making? Is that collard greens? Yes. Yes, it is. So this is actually, these are massive. These are massive leaves. They are organic from a local farmer that I love, and I got a massive bunch, and I'm canning them. So that's what I'm doing here because I got to process it. So I'm not spending all day tomorrow processing them because I got to can them. Okay, so next question. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing with the lecithin is and the gluten is if I find that I don't need it, I'm not going to add it, but I do have it on hand just in case, because I do experiment with recipes and stuff, and so sometimes I do try it in recipes to see if I get a different result. Okay, let me see. Are there any? Okay, I think I already answered these. What is something you'll never try to make at home because it's just easier to buy? Okay, and I did get clarification on this question because obviously I don't have my own salt mine. I'm not mining baking soda, so things like that. So this is bread. So as far as grains go, as of right now, tortilla chips, mainly because I have made them, but I'm still dealing with a crunchy, chewy texture, and it's kind of a little hard to eat. So in the meantime, I am buying tortilla chips from the store. But as far as bread goes, no, I usually make it. On occasion, I will possibly still buy, okay, full disclosure, and I have a confession. Many times I do still buy flour tortillas, mainly because I do like wraps. And, oh, that's what it was. That's what it was. I made burrito size flour tortillas from freshly milled wheat the other evening. That's what it was. And they were unable, and I still don't have them for burrito size, where I can roll them up to make wraps. You can roll them, but I think as soon as you were to add something into it, like any sort of moisture, I do not believe it would hold up. And that's what I said is I think if I add it, I need to experiment where if I add a little bit of gluten to it to give it more of that elasticity, I need to experiment with that so I can have more of the burrito size, because that unfortunately is if I do want wraps, it is flour tortillas from the store. There, you heard. Yep. Confession. I feel like I have just confessed an awful sin, but I have to be honest with y'all. I want to be real with y'all. So I can make flour tortillas. My recipe is delicious, and especially I think like for tacos, it'll work like when they're smaller, but it's whenever I was getting it to the larger size. Still got to work on that. Full disclosure. All right, let me see. Okay, I think that's, oh, no, we still have more. Okay, with your leftover flour you put in the freezer, do you keep your flour separate or all together in a bag? It really depends. Right now, if I'm using something like Camus, einkorn, the expensive grains, you better believe I keep those separate because I'm going to get every bit of that. But right now I do typically keep, if it's a soft wheat, I keep it separate from my hard wheats. I do keep those separate because, if I'm making, say my yeast bread loaf and I'm like a cup short, I kind of want to make sure I'm using hard wheat, especially if I've already got soft wheat in it. So yeah, I do keep them separate to distinguish between hard and soft, especially if I have more than like, a cup or so. Just, ooh, excuse me. Okay, so beginner grains to purchase. Also, please recommend place to purchase. Thanks. Okay, place to purchase. I have multiple places. You can actually go to my website, grainsandgrit.com/buy grains, BUY grains. And I have a list there. Any coupon codes I have there as well. I'm working on getting more resources, more places to buy. So I will say the cleanest grains that I've ever had is definitely from Pleasant Hill Grain. And they also come in a food safe bucket with a Mylar bag with oxygen absorbers. Like it's extra. Some of the cheapest grains that you will get is from Azure Standard. They only come in bags and you have to go pick them up at a drop. I did a video comparing Pleasant Hill Grain with Azure Standard. Excuse me. And then there are other companies. We have like Guardian Grains, Country Life Foods. Those are the ones I'm thinking top of my head where they, and same with Pleasant Hill Grain, they can ship to your house. So there's all these various options. You just have to see what fits in your price range, what is most convenient for you. You may not even live where there's an Azure drop. So that'll be a huge factor there, but I believe they are all across the continental US now. Okay, we do have the link of where to buy grains for y'all. Now, as far as what to start with a newbie, very, very simple. Keep it simple, y'all. Don't get overwhelmed. Just start with, you need a hard wheat for your yeast breads. You can go with hard red or hard white. Do not worry if it's spring or winter wheat. Don't worry about it. You need a hard wheat for your baked goods and a soft wheat, like soft white wheat, for your baked goods. So hard, I think I said that was for baked goods. Hard wheat for yeast breads, soft wheat for baked goods. Just stick with those for now. Get used to the basics. And then you can start branching out into, say, ancient grains, the weird grains, other things like that. Other easy grains to start with is corn and oats. Those are very easy to start with as well. But if you're talking about the wheats, that's what I recommend. All right, and this one I got several times. Should I buy a Bosch or the Nutrimil Artiste mixer? So that's the Artiste right there. Miss Betsy Bosch is right beside her, and that's Miss Annie Artiste. I heart them both. Yes, I find myself using them at the same time for various things because I am extreme. You do not need both. Now, I am still working on a full review of the Artiste, of the Bosch, and comparing them together. Because now that Artiste is out, there definitely is a price difference. That's the main thing that people are saying. Both of these mixers are great. They handle bread, the dough with freshly milled wheat just fine. The Bosch can handle a bit more capacity. And I would say the Bosch is just heavy duty overall, just more heavy duty than the Artiste. So right now, to make it simple, if you are a power user, you are cranking out a lot of bread, baked goods, doughs, cookies, cakes, whatever it is, I would go with the Bosch just because it's just more heavy duty. If you are only needing, say, 1 or 2 loaves every few days, and that's kind of all that you're doing, the Artiste will be just fine for you. Do know the Artiste does handle my simple yeast bread loaf recipe. It handles the entire thing. So that's almost 6 pounds of dough. Now that is its max. 6 pounds is its max. And I will go ahead and tell you that the Artiste does shake, like, do this, vibrate, I would say. It does shake a little bit when handling that, but not in a something is wrong kind of way, where the Bosch, that baby doesn't move. And I can actually do more in the Bosch. There are times where I'm needing 4 loaves. That's when I use my Spetsy Bosch. But if I'm just sticking with my simple yeast bread recipe, I can go with the Artiste or the Bosch. So that's what I would say right now is if you're just really, I have 2 mixers, so I'm like ultra power user. But that's what I recommend for those. And again, full reviews are coming up. So we'll go through all the details, nooks and crannies. I've been taking notes and things like that. Okay. I think I got them all. Okay. I got them all on my phone. Let me look here. I don't think we have any other questions in the chat. Oh, okay. So I have someone, my Nutri-Mill doesn't seem to grind it fine enough. Example, your tortilla recipe I tried seemed grainy, or did you sift out germ on soft white wheat? Okay, so with my Nutri-Mill Harvest, Miss Nancy, so I have found that to get the finest flour is I turn it on, and then I turn the dials all the way until I start hearing that like squeaky grinding type sound, where, excuse me, and whenever I start hearing that squeaky type sound, that's whenever I know that's going to be fine enough and I could get fine flour. So that's just what I've learned with that. Now, right now, my current setup is I have Miss Wonder Mill. She's the impact mill, and there's Miss Nancy Nutri-Mill Harvest beside her. Again, you do not need 2 mills. I'm extra. And I generally use Miss Wanda, the Wonder Mill, for just whenever I'm just cranking out those loaves of bread and need that fine flour. And I'm keeping my Harvest right now on the setting for cream of wheat and grits, so a coarser grind, because I make those often enough where I just leave it on that setting. And so I just throw it in and don't have to adjust it again to do that. So that's kind of my current setup right now. All right. Let's see. Suggestions on starting a business to sell freshly grained goods. I will say your audience is going to be the biggest deal because people are going to wonder why in the world you're charging $10, $12 a loaf. What is the big deal about it? So education is a huge thing. Your markets are going to be probably more farmers markets where they are expecting the organic, artsy, better for you type food. And just be aware, you're going to get a lot of comments of like, oh, I love bread, but bread doesn't love me, or bread makes me fat. Those type of comments, and be on the lookout. Make sure you already have like 1 sentence liners to combat that. Like, well, you've never had real bread, or this is real bread. Of course, what makes you fat is the fake stuff. And that's what you find in the store, things like that to kind of get that conversation going. Okay. Can gluten intolerant people eat freshly milled flour? This is from Brenda. This is my last question because we're at an hour. We got to wrap it up. So, yes, I did a video about this a bit ago about gluten-free. I think I posted that at the beginning of this year. I have found that the majority of people with some sort of gluten issues can handle freshly milled wheat just fine, because their gluten issues are coming from the fact that they are not consuming gluten the way that God designed it. They're not consuming freshly milled wheat. The bread from the store is nothing but gluten and starch And a lot of times more gluten added into it. So you're not getting the fiber, you're not getting the beneficial nutrients. God created wheat to have gluten in it. It's not an evil thing. So I find that most people can switch over and not have those issues. There are exceptions. If you're celiac, ain't gonna happen. If you have an actual wheat allergy, which you're just allergic to wheat, it's not a gluten thing, it's a wheat allergy, can't help you there. If you're still having issues, I know some people still had issues, and so they really focused on healing their gut to get, their gut bacteria back up and running. Because that's just if you've really got a lot of issues going on. So that's fermented foods, yogurts, all the things. All right. So sorry, I got to cut it off here, guys. So it's been an hour. Hopefully this answered many of y'all's questions. I love the questions that y'all asked. Y'all got to know me a bit better. Of course, the comments, you can always comment below the video. And that's pretty much it. So again, be sure to be signed up for my email list because we've got some things going on. And if you want how I make collard greens and how I'm canning them, that's part of my membership group. And that's your recipe for this week that will be hitting your email boxes. I've got the canning bug, so y'all might be seeing a lot of canning recipes in the future. But hopefully this was helpful, y'all. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you for joining me here tonight. And if you're going to be taking any vacations this summer, hope you have a wonderful vacation. If you come to Florida, prepare for your face to be melted off. And if you wear makeup, don't bother. It's going to melt off. So I'm going to get back to my collards, and y'all have a wonderful day. And I'll see you the next time I post a video. Bye.